from the hand after the explosion. No fingerprints on the gun. No one heard the fired shot. They didn't find the fatal bullet that was fired. There was no blood or blowback visible. No fingerprints on the gun, even though it was in his hand. I mean, at what point does anyone say, a rational person, this doesn't add up? And then the FBI forensic evidence showed that neither hand was on the gun's grip when it was fired. This is physically inconsistent with suicide.
Did the Oklahoma bombing have a distinct CIA signature? Did the bombing involve the Clinton administration? I mean, if you believe that he didn't have anything to do with it, you probably believe that Lee Harvey Oswald shot and killed Kennedy. Did Lee Harvey McVeigh do this job in the Oklahoma building?
No, he didn't.
He did not?
He did not.
You were in the White House, were you not?
I worked with a multi-jurisdictional team that operated out of the Executive Office of the President.
And what were they doing?
Initially, we were doing a national network surveillance project, and that transitioned into an espionage project and absolute surveillance of the Clinton administration from the inception of the presidency.
Now, the word espionage indicates that this would be run under the operation of a foreign government.
Correct.
The Japanese?
The Japanese. We were reporting to the Embassy of Japan in Washington, D.C.
What we know is this. Vince Foster had in his possession, shortly before he died, extremely sensitive binders of information from the National Security Agency. What specifically was in those binders, we don't know yet. Some of my sources are saying, in fact, they involved protocols, codes, authentication codes by which the president would proceed to effect an order of the use of nuclear weapons. Now, whether another government could use that, or whether another government having that information could preempt the U.S. using it at a crucial moment.
Now, what you're saying is that the United States codes, which are privy to the President of the United States, were given to a foreign government by Vince Foster, thus allowing them or giving them the capacity to create a nuclear holocaust.
That's the suspicion, or who knows what actually could have been done with it, or what was ever contemplated doing with it. I mean, a worst case scenario is conceivably, yes, somebody, maybe not the Israelis, but maybe somebody they could sell the stuff on to, could either do it or, more likely, threaten it for extortion purposes. Ultimately, I think you have to think in terms of money rather than actual use of nuclear weapons. But still, the political impact within our country of the knowledge that these kind of documents could have been released, it would cause a political firestorm, which is why Vince Foster's death has been a cover-up.
Field, Getzman,
Thomas, Stanley.
Yeah. So tell us about these characters. And one was with the FBI, one the DIA, and one the CIA.
As they were introduced to me initially, Robert Getzman introduced himself from the Executive Office of the President while he was under Bush. And I identified him from the State Department and from within the FBI as being a senior FBI official holding what they call dual agency clearances both for the FBI and CIA. Cofield was introduced to me in Washington as a DIA agent.
Now, you were working with these individuals.
Yes.
And you were involved in bugging the White House.
Yes. We delivered from the inception of Clinton's presidency, starting at the inaugural, we delivered compromised equipment to Clinton's VIP tent at the Lincoln Memorial during the inaugural, and again at the Executive Office, starting with Hillary's Macintosh computer. The first order that she put out, first purchase order, was delivered by Peter Stanley, who was part of our team. That was a Macintosh computer that had a compromised chip in it for surveillance.
They're not going to keep the lid on this. Vince Foster was under surveillance and investigation for espionage at the time of his death.
We were more focused on installing technical equipment in order to compromise White House communications on behalf of the Japanese. So the focus was the technical aspect.
You've got a bachelor in criminology out here at Long Beach. We were at the Preparedness Expo. Are we prepared to face as a nation what is coming down if this legislation passes, where we would be without a First, a Second, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, 10th Amendment?
I don't think we're prepared. I think that they haven't anticipated what the backlash will be. I think that there are millions of people in this country ready to take up arms.
If you see a pattern in all the FBI witness statements for the Fisk investigation and Foster's death, Susan Thomas is now saying they got the statement wrong. Webb Hubbell has given a different account. The first witness to find the body says the FBI manipulated his witness statement. You have Patrick Knowlton. You have other witnesses that have come forward and told the grand jury the statements don't match. Very serious. If all these witness statements were manipulated to make it look like no foul play took place, you know, what are these investigative agencies doing?
You knew about the pressure put upon the gal with the salon in Arkansas, Little Rock, well, I think they told her to shut up or die, right?
Yes, I was told specifically by a high-ranking member of the military, that 2 military personnel were sent to that woman and told that.
And we're talking then about the first lady or the first man, having an affair with a lady in a salon in Arkansas. But the steady stream of women coming in and out of the White House are really not so much to see Bill, but to see Hillary. You must have known about it.
I was really never given any information about that.
In a nutshell, I became a living liability to a lot of prominent politicians from various administrations. I'd worked for my government covertly on various intelligence operations. My background is Air Force intelligence, and I'd been recruited into some operations that the government would sort of like to forget ever happened, namely Iran-Contra. And as the secret policy became public policy after the shoot down of that C-123 military cargo plane in 1987, after that occurred, the agents in the field, people like myself, were disavowed and abandoned. And as presidents and vice presidents and secretaries of state ran scurrying for cover, hiring lawyers, those of us that were left in the field felt pretty cold and alone. And many people that have been involved in this situation end up either dead, in prison, or publicly ridiculed.
You were working with Cofield.
And quite publicly, I might add. This hadn't been a secret to anyone. We had been out across the country attending computer conventions, meeting with the heads, the CEOs and chairmen of many of the leading computer companies in the industry.
So these are covert FBI and DIA operations.
Yes.
Were they involved, these individuals involved in the stealing of the INSLAW technology that was in part developed by or revolving around Riconosciuto?
Well, the CIA was certainly involved with that. It was a topic of conversation constantly during the years that I spent with these men, because various versions of that software were used not only within the CIA and other parts of the government, it was sold off to foreign governments illegally.
Is there any possibility whatsoever, and I'm talking about any now, that Vince Foster came out of the White House, drove over to the park, got out, walked on air, and shot himself in the manner and the fashion that the president is asking us to believe?
There's no evidence that he went to the park, that he was alive in the park, and that he died even in the park. We know that his body was found in the park. That's all we know. One thing that's incredible is that the police, when they searched his pockets at the park, didn't find his car keys. If the theory is he drove there and walked them to the park, they should have had his car keys in the pockets. They claim that it didn't bother them, they didn't find the keys. They let the body leave the park and go to the morgue. And then suddenly they realize, oh, we need the car keys. So they go to the morgue. Only after White House officials showed up ostensibly to identify the body, and suddenly find not one but two sets of keys in his right pocket, in a pocket that had already been searched.
Well, that's amazing, but maybe there was a third set of keys, because he couldn't have possibly gotten to the park if there were no keys in his pocket when the body was searched. Maybe a bird or an animal